In February of 1989, Hungary became the first socialist nation to establish diplomatic relations with Korea. Hungary was also the first socialist nation that agreed to participate in the 1988 Olympic Games in Seoul. Since then, it's always had a special friendship with Korea. The two countries share similar histories. Like Korea, Hungary has maintained its national identity and developed an independent culture, despite pressure from more powerful neighbors. This year is the 25th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Korea and Hungary. Many cultural, artistic, and academic events are being held in both countries to mark the occasion. Ambassador Csaba Gabor was appointed to the Hungarian embassy in Korea last fall. Today, we talk to him about the two countries' political, economic, and cultural partnership. Ambassador Csaba Gabor, welcome to Heart, and thank you for appearing on our show. I know that you were assigned to Korea less than a year ago, but you've been spending that time very actively exploring Korea and the city. I hear, in fact, that you and your family are really getting to know Seoul. Have you discovered any favorite places?
Absolutely, and let me just start by saying, how great an honor it is for me to serve my country, Hungary, in your country, in the Republic of Korea. It's always very exciting when you arrive at a new posting to, familiarize yourself with the place, explore the country, learn about the culture, and that's what we have been doing over the past 7 months or so. We are open people. We really want to take in as much of your culture as possible, and certainly Seoul is a rich place in which to start these explorations. Although we have already started, our trips outside your capital. Here we have certainly a few favorites. We love, all the 5 ancient royal palaces, in the heart of the city, because they radiate history, and we really want to get that experience as well. Any time, in any season, it's always a great pleasure to go to Namsan Park and then walk up to the tower, Seoul Tower. Again, it's a great outdoors activity. And when you are at the top of that tower, you get this special opportunity to truly appreciate the dimensions of this city, which are really huge.
Quite a big city.
And when outside, again, we have made a few trips. Probably one of the most recent experiences we had is the most memorable one. We went to Soraksan National Park, and I think it gives you a very good first taste of the beauties, taste of the beauties of this country.
Korea is, I think, 70% mountains, so I'm sure during your stay you'll get a feel for a lot of those mountains.
Oh, my family is a hiker, so again, we love to do that experience.
But I hear that when you first came to Korea, and it was your very first time in Korea, you arrived just before the major national holiday of Chuseok, when everything kind of shuts down. So what was your first impression when you got here?
Well, we were very happy to arrive after a long flight.
Yeah.
And certainly it was strange to see that once we arrived, Seoul was basically empty, and people went to see their families. But it gave us a welcome, a few days at the very beginning to settle down, look around, make the necessary first purchases, get the first glimpses of the city, and then once that long weekend was over, we could get into the business of representing Hungary. My children could start going to school. So all in all, it was a very welcome and nice start into a very exciting mission here.
And of course, 2014 is an important year for Hungary and Korea relations. It's the 25th anniversary of diplomatic ties. And I hear that the two countries are planning some special events to mark the occasion. And especially for us here in Korea, it'd be a great occasion to learn more about Hungary. So could you introduce some of the events that maybe the embassy is planning?
Sure, we are absolutely proud of this 25th anniversary. It means a lot to us, and that's how we approach the events we are organizing. There are many different kind of events that we are planning. We have already started doing some. We do political events, academic ones, cultural events, concerts. Again, by political I mean high-level visits. Whenever there is such an important anniversary, it's always good to focus the attention by high-level visits. And I really talk about the the very top leaders of both countries, hopefully visiting each other in the next probably 10 months or so. Okay. By academic events, I mean, most recently we had a very nice conference at Hankook University of Foreign Studies, where Hungarian and Korean scholars could come together, take stock of what has been achieved, and look into the future. On the very exciting cultural front, we have planned and already done certain things. At the National Palace Museum, some of the viewers may have experienced it themselves. We have had a very successful exhibition on the life of Hungarian aristocracy in the 17th to 19th century. It turned out to be a real crowd magnet, drawing more than 600,000 visitors. Wow. I think it's really a great success for the museum and for the cause of the anniversary as such. A few days ago, there was a wonderful concert at the Seoul Arts Center when a Hungarian cymbalum, which is a musical instrument, it's like your yangam, a little bit similar to that. It was donated by a very active Hungarian civil society organization, the Hungary and Korean Society, to KNUA, the Korean National University of Arts. And we had, the first concert that introduced the instrument to the Korean audience. It was a huge audience and a very successful event. Importantly, talking about culture, on the 19th of June, the Hungarian National Philharmonic Orchestra, which is really world famous and top quality, will come to participate in the Suwon Cultural Festival. So after that's a highlight. And in October, we will organize a major concert together with the Korean List Society. It's really all about 25 years of diplomatic relations between the Republic of Korea and Hungary. We will have guest artists from my country. So all in all, it's a rich year. There are several other smaller projects. We really want to keep the attention focused on what has been achieved in this relationship.
Wow, it's a full calendar then. Are there also events being planned in Hungary?
Sure. I mean, usually events happening here are in the portfolio of the Hungarian embassy. Right. Your embassy, which is very active, the ambassador himself, Ambassador Nam, has been a great ambassador, has also organized and is still in the process of organizing several things, also concerts and other exhibitions and other events. So I think he and his colleagues have their hands full also. And again, it's we are like bookends, ambassadors in such a relationship. We push the books from different directions, but we have the same goal, and that goal is to make an even more productive and substantive relationship.
Great, and it seems like there's so much and so many interesting events to look forward to. And I think through those events, a lot of people will understand that our two countries actually share quite a lot of similarities. For instance, historically, each country maintained its independence despite some challenges. And although Hungary is in Europe, I hear that we share some similarities in language as well. For instance, your name, I introduced as Csaba Gabor, so the family name comes first. As in Korea. And also when we write the date, we write the date as the same way, year, month, and date, not the other way around as many other countries. Are there any other similarities between the two countries that I may have not mentioned?
Generally speaking, and that's what both Korean and Hungarian people would tell you, there is a sense of closeness. People, when visiting each other's country, feel very much at home when they are there. They feel this special connection between the two countries. Definitely both nations, both peoples are very musical. I think that's one of the connections. When it comes to gastronomy, we love soup. Both nations. We have our special goulash soup, after which actually our version of socialism or communism was named, goulash communism, you may have heard that term. Fish soup is also something that we both love. Also, Korean students have told me, who have been studying in Hungary for some time, that they are struck by the similarities in the way we relate to our senior citizens, the respect we pay them. Also the central role the family plays in our lives. That's also something that connects us. And then history certainly comes to play a role here. Both nations have experienced a lot of adversity in their history. We in Hungary have learned how to live between great powers. We have experienced the foreign domination, which lasted for several centuries in our country. But also we have developed certain survival skills, I think, both nations. And I think both nations are very hardworking, very industrious. They know how to perform and achieve great results. So I think all these things come together, and certainly Hungarians have Asian connections. Obviously, our nation is very much a mixed bag right now. You know, having lived in the heart of Europe for over a millennium, it means that you get a lot of different influences in every sense of the word. But again, our origin is somewhere beyond the Ural Mountains, and again, if you go to Budapest, and I recommend everyone a visit there, you will see that there is, again, even the faces. Sometimes I think Hungarian faces would look familiar to you. So all in all, there is a good sense of being close to each other.
That's wonderful. Well, Hungary and Korea are linked in many ways, as we just heard. Especially, the two countries' cultural and artistic ties are significant, and we'll find out after this. And in fact, who of course famously composed Korea's national anthem, studied at the Liszt Academy of Music in 1938.
Yes, actually the Academy is still a major center of music education in Europe. It's one of the most important ones there. It continues drawing a lot of foreign students, including dozens of Korean music students to Budapest, to the Academy.
25 years ago, Hungary was the first country in the communist bloc to open its doors to Korea. Well, much has changed since then. For instance, so it was 1989 that Hungary became the first nation in Eastern Europe to open its doors to Korea. But actually a year before, in '88, Hungary participated in the Seoul Summer Games, wasn't it? And that must have been a significant event in the history of our two countries' relations. Could you tell us more about that decision and how it came about and how then it led to diplomatic ties?
Absolutely. You know, when you talk about those years, and actually 1989, you started your question by mentioning 1989. We usually refer to it, many of us, as annus mirabilis, the miraculous year, because it was really miraculous how quickly change has come to our neck of the woods. We had a certain advantage, when approaching, this big transition coming to Central Europe. I mentioned the term goulash communism. We had the revolution in 1956, and I don't mean to give you a history lecture, but 1956 was a seminal event in Hungary's history. That was the time when the Hungarian nation rose against a very brutal kind of communist dictatorship. It was defeated, but after that, by Soviet tanks, a very strong, dominant outside force. But after that, the country was changed, and more openness, more entrepreneurship was permitted from above. Goulash communism was born. It was a happier version of the same dictatorship, but still in higher standards of living. And Hungary approached the 80s with this kind of increased openness to outside influences. Again, and glasnost and perestroika came in the Soviet Union, and Hungary reacted quite quickly and appropriately reading the signs coming from the Kremlin. So again, what happened in 1988 and 89, our participation in your Olympic Games, where actually Hungary excelled, was number 6 among the medal-winning nations. We usually are very competitive when it comes to sports. So it was quite natural for us to make that decision, and next year we established full diplomatic relations, being actually the first Eastern Bloc country to do that. And it was very much, in the air, this change. It was very much in line with the way Hungary was being transformed at that time. And again, Hungary, in addition to making this big, opening to Korea, was also very much pioneering the way to the big changes coming to Europe at that time. Some of you may recall the cutting of the Iron Curtain along the Hungarian-Austrian border in May and June 1989. 3 months later, on the 10th of September, the Hungarian government made the decision to let East German tourists pass through Hungarian territory to Austria and then to basically West Germany, thereby actually helping the process leading to the dismantling of the Berlin Wall as well. So there was this pioneering role, and the same applied to the relationship we were building with your country. So again, big steps leading the way and producing a very happy and good end result.
So it actually feels good to know that the year that we established formal ties was such a significant year for Hungary. But that was still 25 years ago. So how do you think the relations between our two countries have changed in a span of nearly 3 decades?
Well, I think it's astonishing to see how quickly we built up a full-scale relationship from scratch, basically. Again, it's a relationship which has many dimensions, political, business, educational, R&D, cultural, and all of these are strong and have their own dynamics. What we are doing now is basically looking at the changing international environment, the changes in our countries, and trying to identify new areas where we can work more together. Again, we have a traditionally strong business component, and that's good, and we want to continue that, but also good things have started happening in the culture exchange arena and also in research and development. When it comes to political cooperation, and certainly for a career diplomat like myself, that's one of the most important areas. It's relevant to note that we have started a very strong kind of dialogue with your country on a number of global and regional issues, and also started working together to tackle some of the challenges of this age, cyberspace issues, water, the safe supply and management of water, fighting terrorism. Hungary was in Afghanistan. Actually, we had a PRT there. We were also present in Iraq. The European Union, of which Hungary has been a member for 10 years now, has emerged as a major international actor. And with the international responsibility arising from your country's enhanced international status and global horizon, I think there is more interface for both of these actors, the European Union, including Hungary and Korea, to do more together. And interestingly, there is another more or less recent development in Central Europe. The region itself has started gaining its own voice on international issues. And now we have an increasingly respected brand called the Visegrad Group, consisting of the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia, which is now becoming an entity, an increasingly important player in international affairs. We believe that too gives us a new channel through which we can talk with our Korean partners and also probably start doing things together in the world.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the business front. As you mentioned, there's quite a lot of activity going on that front. And in particular, there are 50 Korean companies right now in Hungary, and they're responsible for employing nearly 30,000 people. So can you tell us a bit more about what Korean companies are doing in or contributing to Hungary's economy? And also, I wonder what the perception of Korean companies is, or in their products, among the Hungarian people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to know, to start with, that Samsung came to Hungary as early as 1989, so the year when the big breakthrough happened, and Samsung was the very first investor in Central Europe from Korea. As you pointed out, right now we have around 50 of Korea's companies operating in our economy. They have invested some $2 billion in Hungary and have created many jobs. Obviously, that's something that we very much appreciate. Big companies like Hankook Tire, Samsung, KDB Bank, Samyang, Hala Climate Control, they have all been there and have contributed significantly to our economy. And again, they benefit from a very good business environment consisting of an excellent location. If you look at the map, it's really the heart of Europe.
Right.
So again, it's already in the European Union, which gives a certain advantage to all those companies operating there. But also it's close to other big markets in Eastern Europe and Southeastern Europe. It has a very good and, again, much acclaimed workforce, innovative and hardworking, and a well-developed infrastructure. And all this comes at still very reasonable prices, a good value for money. And that's exactly, how your companies have approached this. Some of them are expanding their operations, like Hankook Tire. So again, we are increasingly, aware of the Korean economy's contribution to the world. You know, your brands are popular, you know, Samsung and then Hanguk and all of these, and the cars increasingly. So again, the social reaction to this development it has also been very positive.
Are Hungarian people active consumers of Korean products then? Are they aware, or do they search them out?
I think, you know, Korean products, and that applies across the world, and it's not just Hungary specific, are increasingly attractive and popular, and there are, you know, more and more people really wanting to buy your products in many fields. What makes the whole presence of your companies even more interesting is the way that they exercise social responsibility, you know, in the area where they operate. So again, they build things, they contribute to the development of those towns and villages from which, you know, their workforce comes. And certainly that resonates very, very well with the local population.
That's great. Well, is there an area for potential growth that you see in economic ties that hasn't been explored yet?
I think, yeah, we certainly want to more of everything that we have already done. But I think SMEs stand out, you know, small and medium-sized enterprises. We believe that, you know, they have your Korean companies that would come to Hungary would have a special comparative advantage because they would be closer to Western European markets. There are, you know, big producers there to which they can supply whatever they have to supply. So we very much we are in the process of encouraging these smaller and medium-sized companies to come and invest, look around and find the niches that they need. Also, we very much encourage big research facilities, research departments of research centers of big Korean companies to come to Hungary because we have excellent engineering skills and problem solving, you know, potential. This is something that other international companies, you know, GE and Ericsson and others have done. They have brought their research centers to Hungary, and they have been able to take advantage of, you know, our comparative advantages. And finally, just to mention a few areas where probably your companies could be interested. Hungary has emerged as a very important car and car parts producer over the past 10 years or so. Also a producer of electronic goods and also a country where food and food processing, these industries are strong. So we believe, you know, with companies like Mercedes-Benz, Audi, GM, Suzuki, all present and producing in Hungary, these are potential areas where Korean companies can, you know, find projects that are worthwhile developing.
Food in particular stand out to me. As you said, we sort of have similar taste in food as well. But of course, another area that Hungary is most famous for, I think, is music. It's the center of music, and not only geographically, but also the center of music in Eastern Europe. Your country has produced the famed pianist and composer Franz Liszt, musicologist and composer Zoltán Kodály, and in fact, who of course famously composed Korea's national anthem, studied at the Liszt Academy of Music in 1938. So I hear that actually the Academy still has its influence felt today in Korea. Is that right?
Yes, but let me start with Anikte. It's really true that he studied in Hungary with such renowned music teachers like Zoltán Kodály or Leo Weiner, and he was there for 3 years between 1938 and 1941. Interestingly enough, the Hungarian Korean Society, which I mentioned to you, this active civil society organization, erected a bust in his honor, which now stands in Budapest City Park. It's a very nice, I think, connection between the two countries. Yes, actually, the academy is still a major you know, center of music education in Europe. It's one of the most important ones there. Its building has just been renovated and inaugurated. It was inaugurated last year. So again, its central role is very much there. It continues drawing a lot of foreign students, including dozens of Korean music students to Budapest, to the academy. It's interesting to know, you mentioned Zoltán Kodály. Korea, you have a Korean Liszt Society and a Korean Kodály Society. And both of them are very important and good partners for us to implement, you know, projects in this field.
I know there's also like a Liszt competition, isn't there?
Absolutely. Every
under
year,
its name as
for
well.
a few years now, the Korean Liszt Society has organized a piano competition,
Right.
and the embassy has also been involved. We usually invite, the contestants to our residence to present the awards, and the top winner. Obviously, there are several winners. Everyone is a winner when it comes to music, but the top winner is also offered a 1-week stay in Budapest, which includes a visit to the academy and also some learning there. So it's a nice thing. We will continue it.
Well, as the ambassador just said, Franz Liszt and Zoltán Kodály are just some of the famous Hungarian musicians whose presence can still be felt here in Korea today. So let's find out more about Hungary's musical heritage. Hungary is the birthplace of many world-renowned musicians who define the country's musical identity. There's Franz Liszt, who first popularized Hungarian music across the world. There's also Bela Bartók, who collected and studied Hungarian folk music. And finally, there's Zoltán Kodály, who established the foundations of music education in Hungary.
He has been an accomplished composer of whom we are very proud, but also he has been a music teacher. And his performance here, his record in music education has served Hungarian cultural diplomacy very well over the years.
The Kodály method was first established in 1857 and methodically developed for 100 years. It's been widely used throughout the world and can be found in Korea as well. Every summer, the Kemyong Liszt Music Institute offers a music education program based on the Kodály method. The method also encourages the power of choruses to encourage cooperation and sociability. As such, the ultimate goal of singing is to sing in chorus.
코다이는 가장 쉬운 노래를 통해서 노래하는 사람이 직접 음감을 느끼고 그것을 통해서 이제 음악감을 좀 더 키우는 그런 것이 가장 주안점입니다.
In 2010, Kemyong University in Daegu entered a cultural exchange agreement with Hungary's premier music institution, the Franz Liszt Academy of Music. The two countries have since worked together to put on performances, hold workshops, and create the Kodály music program.
Culture exchange is always a very important mission for diplomacy. And it's especially true, when two countries like Hungary and Korea have such rich cultural traditions.
Hungarian music has been an integral part of music in the Western world. Now we hope for more musical exchanges between our two countries. I'm here with the Hungarian ambassador to Korea, Mr. Csaba Gabor. Ambassador, maybe it's because your country has produced so many world-famous artists and musicians, but Hungarians are really famous for their love of the arts, and it's said that even when times are hard and tough, Hungarians would be happy to spend money, what little money they have, on concert tickets. So could you explain a little bit about your attitude towards culture? Is it something that's ingrained from a very early age?
Well, it's true that Budapest is known for its buzzing music and theater life. We very much, culture is very much part of our everyday life. So again, it's not uncommon for someone to go to the theater 2 or 3 times a week. We love, and there are many, many music halls and theaters, both in Budapest but also in country towns. We love our musicians, we love our actors and actresses, we know them, we follow their careers, they are very important to us. In Budapest, we have our own Broadway. It's certainly smaller than the one in New York, but it's called the Pest Broadway. We have a wonderful old and breathtakingly beautiful opera house, a relatively new Palace of the Arts, which is famous for its acoustics, which is said to be among the best in the world. So it's somehow, I don't know if it comes with the genes, because probably it isn't, or it doesn't. But just like I said, we love to live culture and we love to experience it. And again, some of the outstanding Hungarian artists are probably testimony to this tradition in my country.
And it's also, I guess, stressed in education as well, cultural, like the arts and music.
Yes, Hungary traditionally has excelled in science education. That's how we have produced 13 Nobel Prize winners, most of them in chemistry and medicine and physics. Actually, Hungary has one of the highest per capita Nobel Prize winners in the world. That's how we produce a lot of inventors. Again, many of these gadgets or equipment that we use on a daily basis have come from Hungarians. So the digital computer, the noiseless mesh, the ballpoint pen, the soft contact lenses, Rubik's Cube. Some of you may know that. It's also Hungarian. So anyway, science education has been strong, but also, again, traditionally literature is given a lot of emphasis while you are at school, both elementary and high school. Also arts education is strong. So yeah, it's our curriculum is traditionally just like yours, is very demanding. So again, children have to perform and learn a lot while at school, and arts are not neglected for sure.
13 Nobel laureates on top of the culture. And you mentioned the many, many beautiful halls and musical concert halls in Budapest and Hungary. And I also heard that you have 10,000 libraries, so I guess that must contribute a little bit to the Hungarians' love of reading and education as well. Are there also some maybe representative artists or maybe writers that maybe Koreans are not that familiar with and you'd like to introduce?
I think I do, and it will be a long list, but I will try to really focus on the absolute most important ones. Because we really have produced a long list of outstanding achievers in arts who have become known over the world. I should start with our composers, partially because they have not been handicapped by the language barrier. And certainly one shouldn't forget about Liszt Ferenc Liszt, Zoltán Kodály, Béla Bartók, Ernő Doknányi, György Ligeti, György Kurtág. They have been all, celebrated artists in the world. The same goes for our musicians. Some of them are also well known. Eva Marton, the singer, George Solti, Zoltán Kocsis, András Schiff. They are all very important. Our writers, of whom we are very proud, poets and novelists, have been handicapped by the language barrier. Our beautiful foreign language, beautiful native language, is spoken by only 15 million people in the world. Despite this fact, we were really, very, very happy and thrilled when, the first Hungarian received the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2002. It was Imre Kertész. And these days you can find several volumes by the likes of Sándor Márai, Magda Szabó, Péter Eszterházy, or Péter Nádas, translated into several foreign languages.
Korean too?
Well, yeah, probably a couple. Also, Hungarian artists, Robert Kappa, André Kertész, Brassai, have made tremendous contributions to photography, international photography. There are some Hungarian movie directors, who have large followings in the world. Miklós Jancsó, Béla Tar, or István Szabó, who was also awarded the Oscar some 3 decades ago for Mephisto, which is probably the most best-known Hungarian movie ever. Again, in Hollywood, some of the names that have strong Hungarian backgrounds, like Tony Curtis, again he died a few years ago, Paul Newman, or even Johnny Weissmuller, from the Tarzan.
Newman.
Yeah.
Because everyone thinks of Paul Newman as the quintessential American sort of actor. And
Well, there are surprises in this world.
so he was born in Hungary? Or
No, his family
Hungarian?
came from Hungary.
That's amazing. So, like you said, I mean, probably you can devote a whole hour to Hungary's long list of artists and great composers and musicians. It kind of makes me curious now, what do Hungarians know about Korean culture? Because I know that 대장금 was first aired in Hungary, probably the first country in Europe to air it. So I wonder how Hungarians thought of that drama, or if they've had any exposure to other sort of modern or even traditional Korean culture?
It is a fact that K-pop and K-drama have reached Hungary, and now they are quite popular.
Really?
I understand that there are fan clubs organized in Hungary, and they attract a lot of people. Also, Korean films. We have, a yearly Korean film festival, which is very popular. Korean films are quite popular. Kim Ki-duk, is probably the one who deserves most of the credit for making the breakthrough in Hungarian cinema, and he is, very, very popular. Also, some of your poets and novelists have been translated into Hungarian. The likes of Kim Man-jung and Pak Van-se are popular and easily available in Hungary. You have a Korean cultural center in Budapest, which was established 2 years ago. And I met certainly with the colleagues there, and they tell me, how they cannot satisfy the demand coming from the Hungarian public for, cultural programs, language courses. Young people want to learn the language because they love, the K-pop stars. Some in the older generation love, the K-drama series and stars. They want to learn the language for that reason. Therefore, they want to start their exploration of Korean culture in a broader sense. So I think there is a lot of demand, and I'm happy to hear that.
And how are you finding K-drama and K-pop now that you're in Korea and you're kind of surrounded by it? Or have you started watching any?
I have not started listening to K-pop, not because I try to avoid it. I certainly hear it, when I move about, sometimes on the car radio or when doing my shopping, in stores.
Can't avoid it, yeah.
And I don't mean to avoid it. I certainly understand, its attraction. As for K-drama, some of the series have been shot in Hungary, like Iris 1 and 2. Right. So I certainly made sure that I know Iris, and I think it's really a very good series. They are very popular, and I understand why. They give the Hungarian audience an opportunity to get a glimpse into a different culture. It's really a very exotic experience, to look into the functioning of a different society. And also, these K-drama series and Korean movies in general have very interesting and exciting plot lines. The stories are quite complicated and complex. The characters are well developed. They are real people. You feel them. The scenery is very attractive, very good. And there are a lot of emotions, which many Hungarians love. So I think it's a combination of many factors.
Right. And there are many similarities between our two countries. And of course, 2014 marks the 25th anniversary of diplomatic ties between Hungary and Korea. So many events are planned to celebrate this occasion. We went to one of them with Ambassador Csaba. Last April, Ambassador Csaba Gabor visited Keimyung University in Daegu.
This year, since we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of this relationship, we have planned a series of events. Actually, the first one is this very exhibition at which we are standing right now, an exhibition showing giving us a glimpse into 17th to 19th century Hungarian aristocracy.
The exhibition included 190 artifacts on loan from the Hungarian National Museum. It was the first time the treasures were on display in Korea, and they made the 25th anniversary of the two countries' diplomatic relations extra special. The collection of artifacts from royal and noble houses of Hungary offer us a glimpse into the history of the Habsburg monarchy.
There are so many things that Hungarians and Koreans share. Hungarian origins in Asia mean one very important connecting point, and culture is another means that connects us very closely.
A few days later, Ambassador Csaba attended another celebration, this time in Seoul.
This is a very important conference, how we should do even more, how we should accomplish more when working together. So really we try to formulate certain ideas and proposals on the basis of which we can make this relationship even more substantive, even better.
The Dean of the Department of Korean Studies at ELTE University in Hungary also attended the conference. The department was established in 2008, and the Dean's presence at the conference was proof of the rising interest in Korean language and culture among Hungarians.
The Korean department is one of the most popular department of the ELTE University, especially young students who are interested in traditional Korean culture, traditional Korean clothes, traditional Korean medicine, interested in Hanok, interested in Hanbok, decided to learn Korean language.
Korean culture is more than just a fun phenomenon in Hungary. It's starting to influence education and career choices. Likewise, many Korean students are taking an interest in Hungary and the Hungarian language.
한국에서 되게 소소하기도 하고 현관인 친구가 있었는데 같이 이렇게 대화하다 보니까 궁금하게 돼서 전공을 선택하게 됐어요.
사촌 형이 헝가리에서 6년 일하셨거든요. 헝가리의 경제적인 비전, 또 실제 거기 근로자들과 살면서 있었던 그런 경험들을 저한테 얘기해 주셔서 그게 다른 과보다도 제가 헝가리어과를 고르게 된 이유였던 것 같아요.
In 1989, Hungary was the first socialist country to enter into diplomatic relations with Korea. Now they are working together so that what began as a special relationship can develop into a valuable partnership that helps both countries progress. Cultural exchanges between Korea and Hungary have spanned everything from education to history. And on the 25th anniversary of the diplomatic ties between our two countries, we hope to see our friendship with Hungary deepen even more. Now, I know that Hungary is emerging as a favorite destination for Korean tourists, but it seems like most Korean tourists will stay in Budapest. So could you recommend some places off the beaten path that they should take a chance to explore?
Absolutely, and I would very much recommend the Korean visitors to spend a few more days in Hungary. Usually, it's really a rush, and we fully understand it's a great distance, and you get just a day or two to look around in Budapest, and it's already a big city to see most of the essential sites. But I would definitely recommend a few places. Just for your information, Hungary has 8 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, so it's a large number. Many of them are outside Budapest, and some of them are quite far away. What my recommendation would be for you is to check out some of our hot water spas. Hungary has a lot of hot water underneath, and we have built quite beautiful baths underground.
And Koreans love baths.
Exactly.
So, yes.
Some of them actually go back to the Turkish times. Hungary was occupied by the Ottoman Empire for 150 years in the 16th and 17th century. So I would recommend that. I would also recommend our lake, Balaton, which is the largest warm water lake in Europe, meaning that there are all sorts of opportunities for recreational activities during the summer. I think it's also nice. Also, the Puszta, the Hungarian plains, these vast plain lands, which are also very exciting. And then, a number of smaller or larger cities outside Budapest, the likes of Sopron or Eger or Pécs or Hollókő, another place listed in the UNESCO World Heritage list. So I think many opportunities. It takes a little bit of time. So if possible, add just 1 or 2 more days and you get a fuller picture of what Hungary is all about.
It's always best to spend more days, I think, in one country instead of just going hopping around too many destinations. Ambassador, last question. You've yet to even finish your first year as ambassador in Korea, but I understand that your term here will probably be 4 years. So do you have some sort of a goal or a mission that you would like to accomplish during your stay here?
I certainly do. I would be in big trouble if I didn't. No, I certainly have. The bottom line is that I would like to add more substance and more value to a relationship that is already very strong. The foundations are really good. They are based on a strong sense of friendship, shared values and compatible interests and goals. So I think it's really a very good relationship. I certainly would like to elevate it to the next level if possible. At the same time, I would certainly also like to create more visibility for Hungary. I want Korean people to know about our strengths, our inventiveness, our education, our culture, music, and other important things. I also want to contribute to enhancing the dialogue between the political dialogue between the two countries. Again, a career diplomat always wants to do that, and the background for the context is very good. We have the bilateral relationship, which is good and strong. We have the regional aspect, the Visegrad group. We have the EU dimension to it. So I think there is a lot more we can do. I certainly would also like to get more research and development cooperation. I think there is a lot of opportunities there. We already have several jointly operated laboratories in Hungary. Again, Hungarian basic research is world-class. Korean effectiveness in applying basic research to production is also, renowned. I think it's a marriage made in heaven. Educational exchange, more students going in both directions, scholarships or in other formats. And finally, and naturally, culture. I would really like to see the continuation of this trend of more artists moving to Korea from Hungary or from Korea to Hungary. It's a big mission. I look forward to the continuation, and I'm very happy about this opportunity here at your program.
Well, it certainly looks like you have your work cut out for you over the next 4 years. But we thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with us, and especially to teach us a little bit more about Hungary. I know for sure that myself and our viewers feel closer to Hungary through this talk. Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
And that was our conversation with Hungarian Ambassador to Korea, Csaba Gabor. Thank you so much for joining us, and do join us again next time for more Heart to Heart. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.